Hopefully you can hear me. Let me put this back here. Yeah. How has your week been? Speaking broken English right now. Broken English. I should pull this back a little bit more. Nah. Just leave it there. Just leave it. Leave it. Oh, but I think I could do something here. Just change that a little bit so, and well, I tried. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me and see me well. I just check the sound really quickly. Yeah, and see what I can do today. Take it easy. Yeah, I'm gonna use a pencil today. What the heck? Why does this activate his headphone? There you go. That's off. Cool. So yesterday, well, apparently someone that at least said that they're new to drawing joined, so maybe I'll do like a little demo about certain things. So for example, and I'm just gonna start with a face. You're gonna do a head. Usually let's see, yeah, let's just move this over here. So if you're gonna do a head, I start with a circle. What a terrible circle, isn't it? Start with a circle. This is confusing. There you go. That's better. And turn that off. And the other part, like for example, I usually try to draw faces in 3/4. I try to avoid doing them in like full frontal and complete side view. The reason being is that to me they tend to be more static. So the most appealing, it usually is 3/4. It's a little bit more dynamic. So yeah, you start with a circle. You if you want, you can do like this would be the side of the head. Like if you see something like this is a maybe not the best example, but kind of a skull. So you see that we have like this side of of our heads, so it's not fully a sphere. So imagine a sphere with a piece cut out of it. So you have that. That would be the the temple, I think is the name of it. Um, and what you can do is project it downwards to create kind of this B that would be the chin. Sometimes I get it wrong, but um, it's for you to get an idea of how this works. I'm pretty sure you can find a bunch of different tutorials about how to do this, but I'm just mentioning it if you're interested or if you want to ask questions about it. Um, I'm not the most technical uh, artist there exists, um, but I do try to do the best I can. So you have that. This would be the neck. That you can think of it like a cylinder, and you want to divide this side of the head, like divide the head into two. So you want to do this line, so you can have an idea of where, an estimation of where the nose should be, and the center of the mouth, and so on and so forth. Um, these measurements, these proportions change from person to person, and well, if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can have a reference that would probably help you out. And if you want to do that, in my case, I always try to draw my own things, even if sometimes I get it wrong, because I feel that way I improve upon my own skill level. I'm not depending on somebody else's work, maybe photography, or having some form of reference. If you want to have a reference, a lot of the times what people do is that they have a mirror and they film like they take a picture of themselves, or they use that, or they use the mirror as I'm mentioning, so you can have something to reference for your drawing and take measurements and so on, which I think it might induce this thing where if you do a lot of portraits that are your own thing, they tend to look like you because that's what you have seen the most. Like, you look at yourself a lot in the mirror, growing up and throughout your life, so you have that kind of encoded into so what I did here, you can see that you have this sphere, so to speak. This is a terrible example because this is not clean. You usually want to try to do clean lines, but ignore that part. I mean, having a hard time, so ignore the terrible lines. So I'm dividing this into two. Like, I already divided the sphere this way to kind of get where the nose should be and the middle of the face, and I'm dividing it again here so I get kind of where the the eyebrows should go. It's not exactly like that, but you can, like, if you look at me on the reference on the reference on the little camera, you can see that like my eye coincides kind of like with the middle of that sphere that is your head, or that sort of sphere shape that is your head. So you can go above it a little bit, and this, all that I'm saying, it takes time to get accustomed to, and maybe there's I'm pretty sure there's more technical aspects to this. I'm telling you the way I do it, but I know that like, I don't know, this measurements coincides with this other thing. I don't go into that technical stuff that much, and maybe I should, but anyways. uh, so this would be where your eyebrow should be, and this is the center of your eye. So if I start to kind of erase a little bit of this, so I have a clear understanding of what is going on here. So you can cut here, make a little bit of a cut. That would be, if you see a face on the side, you would have this. I have like really pronounced eyebrows, so you can see like a huge cut where the eye socket is. So that's what you're doing there, and then it goes back out into the cheek, or the cheekbone that you have here. So you have that, and usually this eye, sometimes you don't see the end point of it, but usually you get to see like a little bit of it. And you have the nose, that is, like, you see the base of the skull. So if you project this line, it kind of coincides with the middle between this point and this point, and it also coincides with the base of the skull. You can sort of see it. You can sort of see it here. See, if you project the line, I'm terrible at this, but like, you can see there kind of coincides with the base of the skull, and you see that the lower part of the ear, that also coincides. So if I project all of that here, I already have the box for the ear. If I go down here, this, I'm trying to estimate where this happens, this space between the eyebrows, and I'm giving kind of the same distance. It might not look like it, but you gotta account that with the fact that you gotta account the fact that when you turn something, it kind of compresses the what you're looking at visually. So if you look at me on an angle, you can see that that measurement is still the same, but it looks a little bit like, if it gives you an illusion that it isn't. But yeah, it is. So I'm not the greatest at this, but I'm trying, you guys. I'm trying. Alright. The other thing is, where the eye socket is, there is this, it goes inwards. This is a cartoon example of what I'm talking about, but it goes inwards. So you're trying to replicate that and go inwards, and if you want you can create kind of this angle box. There's other things that are happening here, but you can actually, in this case, this could go this way, but you have to account for the nose. Some people, they have a really prominent nose, like sometimes they have like a really prominent like bone for the nose. Some people, it's on a different angle, so you don't have that as much, and that changes the face completely depending on the person. So you have something like this, right? Already, you can, if you wanna make the nose, you can do something like so, and a rectangle here, and kind of turns into a pyramid shape. Like, think of it about it like this, but it's wider. If you look at it from below, you're gonna get actually something similar to this. So that's what you will get, and this changes from person to person. Sometimes the cheekbone is up here, sometimes it's lower. It changes every time, like every person is different, so you're gonna get an incredible amount of different combinations of different proportions. Alright, so the other important measurement, I don't like when I do this. Anyway, here I have the nose, the eyes, the mouth. See that the lower part of the nose is between the chin and the head, the lower part of the head. That's, you break it in half. Well, you do the same with what you have left between the nose and the chin, and that should give you mouth. Sometimes I actually, I don't know if I like doing that, because I feel that it gives you a weird measurement. So I would place it maybe. Actually, it seems to be correct. Yeah. My eyes are wrong. That's what's wrong here. My eyes. Anyways. And the other thing is, the other measurement that people tend to do is like, see how this point coincides with this one. This is the beginning of the eye, well, the inner part of the eye, and the outside of the eye usually tends to coincide with the nose, like something like this. I don't know if I'm showing it correctly, but so something like this coincides with this. And the idea, or something that they they mention usually is that if you can see again, like into a terrible way to make an example. Uh, because I'm trying to figure out where. Alright, so you can see there that my eye coincides with the outside of the mouth. You usually want to do that, unless some measurements are like, there's some people that have different proportions than anybody else. They're just unique in terms of how they look. So yeah, you have already the eye there. You can shape it however you want to. I don't know if you can hear my daughter in the background. So you have the eye. This would be the mouth. Depends on what you want to do. With men, you don't put that much emphasis on the mouth. Because yeah, if you put too much detail into it, it tends to look more feminine. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you're doing a female versus a male, in this case it's a male, you would have the distance here, like the chin would be shorter. This part here would be shorter. Whatever version of that you want to deal with, that's your prerogative. But the distance usually tends to be shorter, and the lips tend to be more prominent in females than in males. The jaw is less pronounced, if it makes sense. Anyway, maybe not the best example, but yeah. So once you have that, you can add all the detail that you want. I usually don't like drawing this way because I feel, and now looking at it, this is completely out of proportion. I talk about this a lot, that you why does this happen to me? Like I'm drawing on the table, like this is what I'm looking at. If this is a rectangle of the paper, so I'm getting some distortion in the way that I'm drawing. To me, it looks good, but once I look at it this way, then I start looking at all the mistakes. So let's see if I can freaking fix this. Bothers me so much. I don't get this right. Ugh. But that's what happens if something should tell you that this is a real life thing. It should be this. Alright. So if you wanna, like, just by doing what I'm doing right now of changing the angle in which you're drawing, you can improve the way you draw just by doing that. It's not that bad, but it's not great either. Oh well. Okay. So now this measurement is off, and the other measurement is off too. This is really the name of the game. Fix the proportions, whatever you're doing. So I changed where the mouth goes. That's why I don't like putting too much emphasis on the mouth. That should look a little bit better, hopefully. Yeah. That's another reason why you should always, if you're drawing, you should look at it from different angles, like flip it and put it against light, so you can see the mistakes that you're doing. That comes across properly in this case, but that's the kind of stuff I do, and that's what you do if you're working digitally. You should flip the canvas so you check your work. And so you have this, the year. What do you have this? I don't know, there's plenty of different years and each one is different. You can have a reference for a year, and for example, where the hair starts is usually like around here. Some people, because they're going bald or something, they start like way back there, but you can kind of do this thing where, well, I know that there's hair there, there's hair here, and you can change that to whatever you need to. Like to whatever hair dough. I like this weird type of hair like me, kind of curly. So going back to what I was saying, I don't like to draw like with this level of technicality, because unless I really need to, because I feel that the drawings become kind of like robotic, if it makes sense. At least that has been my experience. They don't seem as natural as if you're not using like the full-on structure that you would. Also, another thing to consider is that every nose is different. Some people have like this weird thing that like you have to look at the person and see how it's shaped, and it comes from the bones. Starts with the bones that are behind it, but each face structure is different. Sometimes the bones are lower, sometimes are higher. If you look at enough people, you're gonna see that there's so many different combinations of what I'm talking about. Also, different face creases. So you, depending on the age, some people start to have creases at a really young age. Also, like I don't know, sometimes they have like a broken chin. It depends on the person. I don't know what I'm doing there, but just to make an example here, and I guess to warm up. The other reason I don't always like to do it, to draw that way, is because I feel that I have to constrain myself to specific proportions that are really specific. They're really redundancy, but like as I said, each person is gonna be different, and unless you're doing like a portrait of someone that you want to get the likeness right, in those cases it's really important to have all the proportions to the T. But if you're doing like I do a lot of more cartoony stuff, so you have to play around with the proportions of whatever you're doing and the way you approach it. So that's something to consider as well. Meaning, like, for example, the eyes here. You can exaggerate the eyes and have a different feel for whatever is the character is communicating. And you go for something more stylized, if it makes sense. I don't know if I like the proportions of this guy, but so Yeah, the same. Like if I were to draw like the skull of this guy, it would be like something like so. Would be the eye, so the socket should be larger than that, and you would have teeth go here. This is also something that you should practice if you want to learn anatomy. You have to be able to do all this stuff. I think that the teeth go to like around there. Because we have muscles and stuff. I always get the amount of teeth wrong. I don't know the exact amount, but you can Google it if you feel like it. Um, so something like that. And the column doesn't sit exactly in the center of the neck. It's more towards the back because we have a bunch of muscles here that cover the neck and help us move. You have the throat as well, so you have to accommodate for that. Yeah, and this actually kind of coincides with certain bone structures that we have. And this part right here is kind of like a small cap of sorts, like something similar to this. Like I did a little bit of the markings here, but this is where the bone structure closes once we grow up. That's the area that closes. Yeah, and you have like another one here. I think this is a cartoon version, but you get the gist of it. So actually the bone part is only this much. All this stuff is cartilages, cartílago in Spanish, but cartilage, I think it is. So that's why you can move it around. Yeah. Anyway, that's really redundant of me to mention, but hopefully it helps someone. And I always get this wrong. Yeah. So as I was saying, this is more like traditionally what you would do with drawing and how to tackle it. But if you want to do something more cartoony or play around with the proportions, um, what I tend to do is what you have probably seen me do a bunch of times. Is like just think of this point, this point, this point, this point, this line, and this line. So there I already have the eyes, and I'm trying to get the mouth. And I can exaggerate that as much as I want. Let's exaggerate it more. Could be too much. Sometimes it gets to like absurd. This is a terrible example of an eyebrow. And you can only, if you want, you can only focus on the lower part of the nose. And it's not that noticeable here, but see if I move back how this turns into a shadow, a full shadow. Well, that's how you basically simplify that. So yeah, if you do that, you already have the lower part of the nose, and I can do that same thing for the mouth. Like you usually have shadow on the top part of the lip and on the lower side of the lip. And there you go, you have a face. I think this is the most condensed and comprehensive thing I've done about drawing here on YouTube so far. Even though, well, maybe not the best examples, but all in all, well, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitch, and on Kick. I was streaming in other places, but I just stopped. The other thing is, in this case, this is not consistent, so you can work around to make it so it's consistent, one measurement versus the other. And you can see that here, like one side versus the other side. And with stylized stuff, what you're trying to do is condense information. Like if you're gonna do hair, you're not gonna do like each strand of hair. You're just gonna work in different areas of hair, if it makes sense. So for the shading, you can do this sort of thing if you want to, but you can just like do a full color thing, and that's it. Just want to have kind of that variation. You can define the shapes, and then like here I don't fully like that space. It's too pronounced. Depending on how much detail you want to add, you can add more information here. Remember that I mentioned to flip the page and look at the drawings from different angles, so you know when you make a mistake. That's an important part of this whole thing. And one thing it did happen to me a lot is that in this case you can apply the thing of the following the fact that the center of the eye coincides with the outside of the mouth. But in these cases, if I were to do that, this character would look freakish. So you would have to really account for that, and that's why I don't. With all the versions and tests I've done over time, like you have to shift those proportions. It doesn't work with cartoony characters or with stylized characters the same way. That's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. Could be better though, I think. So yeah, well, as I mentioned, something to really take into account is that you're looking at the page at the right angle. That, depending on the format, can help you or break your drawing. That's why you see like a lot of people drawing like right on top of their sketchbook, because that's what they're trying to accommodate for. And if you fall onto that and you don't know, that's the reason why it happens. You're trying to, like, why is this not working? Because you're looking at it in the wrong angle. So you want to avoid, if this is a page, if this is my desk, this is a page, and this is my eye, my large eye. You want to avoid looking at it this way. You want to be, as much as possible, look at that. Made a little cartoon of myself. You want to look at whatever you're drawing, this way. At the very least, like this. I don't know, you can do like this angle, but if you're looking at it this way, you can get a lot of distortion. So that's why you see painters like doing this. That's the reason why. Anyway, just a thing that for you to take into account if you're into this sort of thing. I'm at 58 minutes. Look at that. Time flies. Again, I was hoping I would get something delivered that I order, and it didn't get here at all. It's frustrating as heck. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow. Who knows? So I could draw on a different medium. Hopefully it arrives tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hopeful for the future. You have to be hopeful. Anyways, what else can I mention about this? Well, if you haven't, consider subscribing. It helps me a bunch. It's completely free for you. Hitting that like, hitting that bell, and all that good stuff. It helps me a whole bunch. I'll probably end the stream soon. If you have any questions about any of the stuff I just mentioned, feel free to let me know in the comments or in chat. Like, if you type something, it should appear on screen. I've mentioned this multiple times, but maybe this is the first time you ever see one of my streams. So anyways, if you decided to join my stream, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I don't know if I'm doing this correctly, but yeah. Anyways, I usually stream for around an hour, Mondays through Thursdays, around this time, and 9:30 p.m. Argentina time. If you wanna check it out, I have a Redbubble shop that you can check on my website. I have an illustrated deck of cards that you can also find on my website about my country, which I don't think I show that much here, but these are all illustrations I made. Each one has a different theme and subject matter, and yeah, this was a lot of fun to do. I'm proud of this project. Anyways, you can check that out on my website if you feel like it, and it can get delivered right to your doorstep. These are casino quality cards, if you're wondering, so you can definitely use them, play with them, and they should hold really well. I really look for a quality maker to do this, so yeah, I took that into consideration. And what else am I missing? Well, I have other stuff on my channel if you want to check it out. They also these decks also come like sealed. Like you can see, that's the way they get to you if you order one. Anyways, check any of the stuff I have if you feel like it. I have other content about other stuff too. If you wanna look into that. uh, I appreciate you for being here, and let me see if I can find my music. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye.